Cool.
Hey, what's up? This is Wilspur with Visible Hymns, and as promised, we are back with our top five guilty pleasure albums. Um, I guess this is defined by maybe stuff that we know is silly and I guess kind of saccharine to some extent. Not everything has to be a total deep immersing listen, and sometimes some albums are just fun songs that get stuck in your head. So I think that's I know that's kind of what I'm going for here. So I don't know, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think your choice is probably going to be a lot more up to date than mine, that's for sure. Because you're a little bit more with it. But yeah, I think with guilty pleasures, I mean, it's all subjective, you know. It doesn't have to mean it's rubbish. It just means that we might be a little bit wary of confessing that we like some of these artists. And, you know, because it's not deemed what we normally listen to or what people would associate us with. But as you say, there are times when you don't want to be so serious and you just want to listen to something that's just fun and, as you say, silly. So I think these artists certainly fit the bill.
Right. And I think generally for mine, I know that most of them aren't that dark. Maybe only two albums would kind of fall under dark adjacent. So yeah, so you want to kick us off with your first?
Okay, so I'm going to take us way back to the 70s, and I went through a phase in the mid 2000s of listening to a lot of power pop, and you know, Big Star, Matthew Sweet, Red Cross, the latter of whom I love more than anything. Um, but a band that doesn't get a lot of credit or mention, I feel, is a band called the Raspberries, and they're best known for the guy called Eric Carmen, who went on to do All by Myself, famously butchered by Mariah Carey. And then also he did some of the songs for Dirty Dancing. But he started off in this band who were around from about the early to mid 70s. And you know, the reason I see them as a guilty pleasure, because it's very power pop and upbeat, but also because their image is somewhat deceptive, because they look a bit like the Osmonds in some pictures. Um, I mean, they look so clean cut and sanitized, yet the music is so infectious and fun. And you know what power pop sounds like, right? You know, late latter day knack and all of that. And I mentioned Red Cross. I don't know if these guys are an influence by them, but the glammy tinges to the music certainly, for me, would have inspired those guys, whether subconsciously or consciously. And some of the famous songs are things like "Go All the Way," "Just Want to Be with You." Don't want to say goodbye, stuff like that. And the record I'm going for is, in fact, their self-titled debut from 1972. So, yeah, a bit of power pop to kick us off today.
Okay, cool. I am not that familiar with them. I mean, I know some power pop. I know Matthew Sweet. I know,
Sure.
uh, I kind of even throw the Gin Blossoms in there with that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I can get that. It's,
They might be a bit too happy for you,
you're
maybe,
right.
but but if you let yourself be carried away by it, you might just dig it. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, the closest thing, and I guess this could have made the list too, but the closest thing to that I listen to, and it might be a little more modern, would be a band like The Fray or Ben Folds Five, you know?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
so I kind of lump those all in together to some extent.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, they're just fun. It's just upbeat power pop, you know, and as I say, because I can't listen to Killing Joke 24 hours a day. Well, I can, but you need a bit of variety. So these guys certainly offer that.
Cool. So my first pick is an album from 1986, and it kind of, there was a weird time for metal, and some bands either buckled down and got heavier, or some went more into hair metal. And this band started off in a little more of the new wave of British heavy metal vibe, even though they're from Seattle. And but I would say this is a probably their darkest album, but it's also kind of new wavy and poppy.
Mm.
It's one of the first ones to have sequencing. I know Dave Oglev worked on it.
Hmm.
Um, but it's one of those things where when people don't like this kind of music because it's pretentious and cheesy, I get it. But I don't know, this is probably one of my favorite albums. And it's Rage for Order by Queensryche. Um, it's definitely an acquired taste, and it's really weird because I can see how the people that are into like power metal and stuff like that might not like this album because of the new wave side. But at the same
Mm.
time, the new wave people wouldn't like this album because of the over the top like falsetto screaming vocals and guitar solos.
Yeah.
Um, the biggest song and probably one of their live staples on here is "The Walk in the Shadows."
Mm.
Which was still more commercial for them than they had been leading up to this. So, yep, that's what I'm going to go for, Queen
I
Trike. And
mean,
I like pretty much all of their stuff except
yeah,
for Empire. I'm a little on the fence with, and then not everything was as inspired.
sure.
But
I
this
think what
album, like, I wouldn't consider Operation Mindcrime a guilty pleasure because it's
no,
such a important 80s metal album.
sure,
Whereas
especially
this,
prog stuff, as far as
yeah,
prog
yeah.
goes, certainly, yeah. I'm not, I mean, I'm sort of familiar with them, but not overly. Um, and for me, this evolution you mentioned, New Wave, sort of reminds me of a band like Rush, who also went into that category, and with, some of their fans not exactly being overjoyed with that evolution. Or even a band like Yes, who went on to do that, that album with the number in its title, whatever that thing
I
was.
mean, a lot of Alice Cooper made
Sure.
new wave albums.
Yeah.
Iggy Pop made a new wave album.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Well,
it wasn't
I
unheard
don't
of.
sort of blame them really. You want to sort of show that you're willing to move forward and not just be this
Right.
remake from the 70s. So yeah, I don't blame them, and I don't blame Queensryche either. Good on them.
Well, I mean, they could have done without the blouses, maybe, but um,
Yeah,
I don't,
everyone can do
I don't see
without
Iggy
that.
Pop on a blouse like Geoff T did. And then, his hair, he got his hair
Yeah.
kind of like where he looks like he's in Duran Duran.
Yeah.
Uh, so, compromises were made, but I think it was more on the image side. I think there's actually some good songwriting and they were breaking new ground for sure,
Yeah.
which I think that a lot of bands that get called prog metal just
Mm.
have a lot of guitar solos, and rather than progressing their sound, which I would say Queensrÿche did more than for better or for worse than a
Sure.
lot of bands of that type of thing. So there we go.
Fair enough. All right. Well, I'll come into the 80s now, and a guy called Robert Palmer. And people will obviously know him for Addicted to Love, Simply Irresistible, The Power Station, and stuff like that. But he goes way back to the late 60s and early 70s with a band called Vinegar Joe. And then he goes solo. 70s stuff is okay, but it's not really till the 80s that he finds a much greater degree of success. And the record I'm going for is 1980s Clues. It's a fantastic album. Gary Newman makes an appearance. It's just so catchy. It's kind of all the new wave that I like, which is kind of very danceable and very quirky, which is what I think new wave should be. New wave should be. Uh, Two big singles, of course, were Looking for Clues, which is fun, kind of predated what he'd do later on, but also an amazing track called Johnny and Mary, which if there was going to be, that's why I think Top Gun they should never have had that awful song by Berlin on there. They should have had this one instead, Johnny and Mary, because it's much more fitting and much moodier, much darker. Um, and yeah, just a really cool tune. And I think he's got a great voice. I mean, do I listen to him every day? No, definitely not. But I think he's just a huge talent. See him as like the Brian Ferry of the 80s, in essence, that suave, debonair uh, persona that he brings along. yeah, being quite grounded at the time because he's from not far from me. He's from Yorkshire, so he brings some of that vibe in too. So yeah, Robert Palmer, Clues for me.
Yeah, I mean, I like Riptide for sure,
Yeah.
and I like he has a certain period I think that's pretty strong for him. He kind of lost the script a little bit, I think, in his more recent stuff because
Yeah.
everything I heard from him after this going into the 90s, he was like doing a Michael Bolton thing where he was like soul.
I know he was doing, yeah, or the Great American Songbook
Yeah.
type of thing. Yeah, it's not really my cup of tea.
No.
But yeah, I mean, as far as the 80s are concerned, if I'm going to listen to pop, it's going to be stuff like this. I kind of put them in a similar category to Was Not Was, not necessarily totally musically, but incorporating dancey elements into the music. So yeah, if you're into that, then there's a good chance I think you'll definitely like Clues if you don't know it
Right. And
already.
there, I think there was I don't know which came first and on the radio and who was emulating who, but there was
Sure.
an element to his singing in this period that also reminded me of like the Fabulous Thunderbirds, uh,
Right. Okay.
where he was like just belting from his baritone range,
Yeah,
which, I guess there's a time and a place for that. So yeah, I don't have any complaints with Robert Palmer.
for sure. Absolutely, man. Cool.
Cool. So my next two are going to be the most jarring departures from what I normally listen to.
All right.
I mean, I guess I've talked about this artist on Ghost Cult before, and obviously on my blog a lot, particularly when I'm doing my end of the year stuff, because she's like one of the best modern songwriters of the 2000s.
Hmm.
And I mean, I think it's a case of a lot of times when people say, well, they're using selling albums as a benchmark for what makes music good, I don't think applies. But I think here there's just a right formula that works. And I haven't really seen anybody else that's out there trying to emulate it. And you would think record labels would be trying to do that when you
Hmm.
have somebody that's, has $5,000 concert tickets. And this album, I think, kind of pivoted into that direction.
Hmm.
I would say there's certain albums by hers that are not guilty pleasures unless you typically listen to like metal and goth, then maybe. But when you're talking about pop music or even folk music, like with an album like Folklore, where she went in a more Joni Mitchell direction,
Hmm.
but this album was more about booty shaking and it's Taylor Swift's Reputation album. Even
Hmm.
though there for pop music, there's some of her sonically heaviest moments. There's a song called Are You Ready for It that has a really intense bass boom to it. Um, but yeah, I mean, obviously she's doing something right. If you love her, hate her, she's doing something right. I'm not too thrilled about her becoming more of a personality,
Hmm.
more of a tabloid personality.
Right.
'Cause I'm
Yeah.
thinking none of that shit really matters. It's are you writing good songs or not?
Hmm.
She became a little more of a phenomenon that I would have appreciated. But yeah, I've been listening to her for probably I jumped on at about the 1989 album, which didn't come out in 1989. It came out in
No, that's when she was born, I think, or
yeah.
something. Yeah.
Right.
That would have been a bit difficult.
It came out in like 2016. So
Sure.
um yeah, it's I don't know. It's one of those cases of when something's good, it's good. And I think some of her newer stuff is a little more formulaic than this album. I think this album was, much like a band like, anybody that we've taught, like David Bowie,
Yeah.
Kiss, whoever, people that pivot because they know if they make Slayer, even Slayer knew that they couldn't make another Rain and Blood, so they didn't. She knew she couldn't make another 1989. So she
Yeah.
didn't. She put out this one and paid off. So there we go.
Fair enough. Yeah. I mean, she's not really on my radar, but I've got no special problem with her. I just see her as basically the newer generation's version of Madonna, in how she's blown up. I suppose the only thing I would say, and what made me chuckle is that actually one of the songs uses "I'm Too Sexy" by Right Said Fred. Is it "Look What You Made Me Do"? He
Yeah.
uses bit. I don't know if it's a sample or a bit of that gets interjected, which is quite an unlikely group to to use, but fair enough. Yeah, she's just fun pop. I guess the annoying thing is like maybe the overzealous fans, these Swifties or whatever you call them, who get a little bit bonkers about it. But I guess that's inevitable really about any sort of pop phenomenon. I'm guessing Madonna probably had her fair share of Madonna rights or whatever they were called. So yeah, I mean it's just fun pop music at the end of the day. Fair play to her.
Yeah. There we go.
Cool.
What you
All
got?
right. All right, this is a band that I've already mentioned on the show. And in fact, I mentioned this album, and it's Scritti Politis' Cupid and Psyche 85 from 1985. And the reason I mention them as a guilty pleasure is because Green Gartside has a voice which, much like Kate Bush and Geddy Lee and people like that, you're either going to love it or you're going to really hate it. It's very, very fey. I mean, my God, he makes Morrissey sound like Tom Araya by comparison. It is really fey and quite weedy and high pitched. But the music is absolutely beautifully put together. And if you like good quality pop music, Will, like I know you do, I think this record might be, if you haven't checked it out already, be up your street. It's kind of funky in places. It's dancey R&B, but in the 80s sense. And that's quite an evolution from a band who basically started off like this scrappy post-punk band in the vein of the pop group. And so I just love that kind of evolution. And I just think this is for me like the perfect pop album, and just so pristine and intelligently put together as well, despite the overall sheen of it being overtly commercial and polished. There's an intelligence there as well, which you don't really get necessarily in the 80s with pop. It tends to be frigging Stock Aitken and Waterman or something really generic and silly. Whereas this is just really well constructed. Um, so yeah, for me, it's Scrittability, Cupid and Psyche 85.
Cool. I'll have to check it out. It's a name I know, but
Yeah.
artist, I could name you a song by them. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
I'm on my
Would
radar.
Be's,
Check out.
I think Would Be's is the big track off there.
Okay.
Uh, it's kind of like a sort of a funk type thing. Yeah, it's fun synth pop, new wave, or that dreaded phrase, sophisti-pop. So yeah, cool.
I'll check it out. All right, the next artist on my list is somebody that I've never written a word about them
Hmm.
or spoken about them on here, just because they're so far to the right of what I normally listen to. Even though I've talked about country music and how I like country music, I don't think I would have even been exposed to this if I hadn't moved to Florida, where pop country is definitely bigger.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and most of it I don't like. And this guy, weirdly enough, was part of like the kind of movement in that genre where they started incorporating like hip hop elements.
Hmm.
Fortunately, he doesn't rap. Um, does use some like 808 drums and stuff like that in it, and it can be kind of cool layering. Um, I would say maybe even owes more to like post MySpace emo at times in some of the guitar parts.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'm going to go with Montevello by Sam Hunt,
Hmm.
uh, which, yeah, you gotta like pop music and you have to like country at the same time, which is a deal breaker for a lot of
Otherwise, you're shit out of luck, basically. Yeah. If you don't like those two,
because
you're
if you
not
don't
pop
like one
very
part of it,
well.
you're not gonna like the other. Uh,
Well, quite.
yeah, just kind of
I mean,
can't see, like somebody listens to Hank Williams liking this. And at
Sure.
the same time, it would be too twangy for somebody that listens to like Bruno Mars or Joji. So
Right. I mean, I had to listen to the track that you sent me. It actually seemed a little bit darker and a bit more, not quite as over the top as a lot of the country pop. I mean, this is about as far from the band Perry and that Lady Antebellum as you can get.
yeah, it's different product. It's a more stripped down production.
It did seem that. It seemed a little bit more, I don't know if introverted is quite the right word, but it did seem
Right.
a bit
Like it's
more
produced more
somber.
like a Snow Patrol album at
Yeah.
times than, like you said, Lady Antebellum. Or, I mean, I really could name you that many more pop country people just to reference it.
Yeah.
Because I normally listen to stuff like Jason Isbell and Sturgill Simpson. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, it's not, I'll say it's not produced like a Def Leppard album. So,
No. Well, that's a
which is what a
positive.
lot of pop country reminds me of. Fair enough, because Mutt Lang is married to Shania Twain. So there's
Yeah.
that Def Leppard connection with
Cool.
country music.
Yeah.
There you go. What you got?
Very good. All right. So I'm going to bring us up to the 90s and The Offspring and their album Ignition. Weird thing with The Offspring. Oh dear, for me, punk completely sunk in the 1990s, and you just got a lot of really terrible bands like NoFX. I just despise that. I should have actually had NoFX in last week for my hated artists. I completely forgot about them. My hatred had boiled over to the point where I managed to blank them out of all existence. But yeah, and you had Blink 182 and then Sum 41, all this kind of American Pie pop punk. But The Offspring always seemed to me to be a far more interesting and darker band, at least initially, than we give them credit for. I like them as guys. They always seem quite sort of down to earth, and they even admitted that they were like a gateway band to the some of the stuff that they were into. Um, of course, everyone knows the album Smash from 1994. It's fine, it's okay. But Ignition is like their second record and definitely their darkest, as far as I'm concerned. Um, it's quite political. There's a song about the LAPD, which 1992 and Rodney King and all of that was somewhat inevitable. And also there seems to be sort of slight hints to Jack Grisham era TSOL as well, just that slight gothic darkness. And you forget that The Offspring could actually be quite heavy on those albums, early albums. I don't mean heavy, obviously. We're not talking Slayer here, but in terms of, not what you'd expect from a band of their kind of the melodic hardcore thing. Um, and yeah, I just really love this record. And I just feel it's a shame that they just, after Smash and maybe even Ixnay on the Hombra, they just went down that really lame sort of novelty song route, with that stupid collaboration. I can't remember. Redman, is it? I don't know. On Original Prankster, which is bloody awful. And the about funny for about 5 seconds, that track Pretty Fly for a White Guy. It just went on and on and on and got progressively worse. But I think for me, Ignition and those first three, four albums in general, um, definitely had a bit more to recommend it than maybe other bands of their era, let's say. So yeah, for that reason, I've got the Offspring's Ignition.
So I was working at a record store, I guess, when the big album broke through. That was Smash, right? With
Yeah,
Come Out and Play.
correct.
So yeah, so I remember we carried the earlier stuff, and there were people that would go back and ask for that, and always meant to check it out, but never did because I felt like that Smash was the album where you had jumped in an album too late with them.
Yeah,
Like they could have been doing something better earlier with more stripped down production. So yeah,
sure.
I'll give it a listen.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, I don't even really listen to them anymore. Truth be told, maybe once every couple of years. But I think as musicians are actually quite good for that genre. The latest stuff I agree is absolute trash. It's just really irritating and just everything about that awful 90s pop punk or skate punk or whatever it's called that I really hate. But I feel like they did have something a bit more to offer early on. It's just a shame that they chose not to continue it. But hey ho.
how it goes. I mean, I guess it paid off for them in some sense,
I guess, yeah.
It's a compromise.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's that. I am, I guess, gonna kind of get back more into my normal sphere of things. A band I've talked about not liking, but I like their last album, and that is Even in Arcadia by Sleep Token.
Hmm.
Um, it's all about your perception of this album and how you approach it and what your expectations are. If you call it a metal album, then you would be incorrect. And if you go in expecting that, then either you don't know what metal is or you're going to be disappointed. So
Hmm.
um, I went into it wanting a good pop album, and that's what I got. And yeah, I mean they're good at that. I'm not convinced. I'm still on the theory that under the mask, this guy is either Sam Smith or Joji. I think probably the
Yes.
latter, but you never know.
You never know. Yes. I mean, Sam Smith is an incredibly annoying performer, and is,
Yeah,
he,
he would have had to have been on a serious coke binge because Sam Smith looks like kind of like when Porky Pig dresses up like a woman to try to fool whoever's chasing him.
oh, he's an idiot.
Um,
You know. Yeah,
and
I
this
can't
guy's
stand
pretty
him.
svelte, so that's why
Sure.
I'm joking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really, because it's not really my realm. I know that they're not exactly well liked by hardcore metalheads.
Which I
Like,
think is warranted.
yeah, yeah, but then I think if you're going in there, you pointed it out yourself. If you're thinking you're going to be listening to fucking Ulver or Burzum or something, then you'd be, grossly mistaken, or Cannibal Corpse or whatever. Yeah, it's not that at all. It's pop with a bit of metal thrown in.
And I think that, part of the problem is the marketing and
Sure.
the music press definitely plays a part in that. Like they prop them up as, oh yeah, you don't be a gatekeeper. These guys are metal,
Yeah.
which is just not true. That's
But don't. You're going to wind up metal fans. Don't call them a metal band. Just say they're a
right.
pop band who delve into metal occasionally, and then I think everyone could sleep easy in their beds at night.
Sometimes produced like a metal album. I wouldn't even say they jump into metal. I mean, the screams, the few that are on the album are so weak that yeah.
Sure. Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, my last choice sees me going into the realms, the dreaded realms, murky realms of new metal. A genre, that started off promisingly and then got progressively worse as the years went on with some bloody awful bands. But Cold, I don't feel is one of them. They were sadly a Fred Durst discovery. But hey, whatever. He discovered Stained as well, but yeah, less said the better. But I always thought they were good. You mentioned that they were from Miami, which they are. I just sort of see them as this kind of like quite moody, introspective, slightly goth tinged band. I mean, they're not a goth band, but they have elements of that, I feel. In fact, they list The Cure as one of their musical influences, as well as Radiohead, Tool, Queensryche, Rush. I mean, that's quite a diverse range of influences for sure. And it's their self-titled debut from 1998. I remember it well. And I could honestly say that, whereas a lot of new metal experimented but just did it really badly, I think these guys were pretty solid. I put them for me anyway, in a similar camp to say the Deftones and, even a band like Snot, who I think are a little bit overlooked, just in terms of at least they were. I don't feel embarrassed listening to them. Whereas, you can't say the same for Cold Chamber, who were absolutely ridiculous. It could even draw some parallels to Seven Dust, maybe. It's kind of in that post-grunge vibe, but actually not Nickelback, when I say post-grunge. That should be a new genre in itself, not Nickelback.
Yeah, yeah, it is. I think, you're talking about grunge. I used to
Sure.
love this album, and I think that it owes way more to Bush. They always struck me as like if Life of Agony was making a Bush album.
Yes.
This.
Yeah.
And I
I
love
know.
the first album is I think the best one.
Yeah.
Uh, the second album was pretty good. That I guess it was 13 Ways to Bleed on Stage or something like
Correct.
that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, the singer didn't have the biggest range, but he did well with what they were doing on that first album, and the guitar sound is really dense,
Yeah.
almost like Helmet. So
Yeah. There's another band that they remind me of. I don't remember Non-Point as well. They kind of
yeah, but
remind
they're
me
not
of
as hip hoppy as Not Point.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, not quite as that.
Yeah,
But I
and
mean
that's
in
where I think
terms
they're
of
more grunge than new metal because new metal has to have that yeah boy,
yeah,
but
the DJ
not
scratching and
in
all of
there. It was
that.
not in there, so
No,
played to
there
their
was
benefit though.
yeah, absolutely. No, I just think they're a really interesting band, and I definitely want to explore more of their catalog because I do think that they have something to offer. And
Yeah, there I have all their albums on my computer somewhere. And sometimes there are ones that I'll dig up. When you brought them up the other day, I was like, I meant to go listen to that first album again.
yeah,
You know, this stuff piles up on you. Now I'm listening to the new Dinosaur Jr. I gotta review that. So there,
okay, right, good.
um, so yeah, so my final pick is going to be another pop band-ish, if you call them bands, project. They're really weird, so it's not that guilty, but I mean, it is like at the same time, you don't want to eat Twinkies and say that you're getting a balanced diet. So I'm going to go with Snow Strippers, Night Killers Volume 2. Um, there is a darker element of what they're doing. Like, I think they're probably, if they're not on prescription medication, they're doing some kind of drugs. They're kind of like there was a forget what they were calling it. Like hyperpop was one, but there was like some type of sleaze element. There was a tag for it, and that is very present. Like the one of the singers looks like a young girl, and they play that up in a way that's kind of creepy. But I also listen to Diane Ward that does that, so
Right.
you know. Um, but they like sample a lot of gunshots and crying teenagers, stuff like somebody like Suicide Boys would use,
Right.
uh, while using like this very saccharine, high-pitched female vocal a lot of times.
Hmm.
The male vocal sounds very apathetic and almost rapping. So he's obviously depressed, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, and the music's kind of almost reminds me of like 90s techno sometimes. So,
Well, it's
yeah,
interesting.
I mean, they're weird enough that I would still highly suggest them. But
Sure.
if I'm hanging out with my friends that I normally listen to, like Cannibal Corpse with, it wasn't
Yeah,
like,
maybe not.
you heard this one. There's a
Well, it's
gun.
interesting you mentioned techno because they're from Detroit. I think that stuff was quite
Yeah,
popular back
yeah.
in the
Like house music was big.
yeah, what was that guy? Derek, someone or other? I can't remember. I don't really listen to that stuff, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know who I mean.
So my thing with most dance music and electronic music,
Yeah,
gotta bring in a real instrument somewhere. If you're just totally like a button pusher, I'm not into it.
no, we've got to
And now
have a
I
bit of
don't think they're even pushing
experimentation.
buttons. I think they're just using plugins and, probably AI too. I mean, I would think AI would be either a nail in the coffin for electronic music or just prove that people do not truly give a shit as long as they're on drugs and there's something to dance to. So,
Well, it's interesting. What the video that you sent me, one of their music videos. You remember that film Spring Breakers by Harmony Korine? I don't know if you ever
right, right,
saw.
right.
It was a horrible, horrible film that had James Franco being really creepy. That kind of was eerily foreshadowing. But it kind of reminded me of that, some of the music in that film. And there's a kind of an slight obnoxiousness to it as well. Kind of an in your face, a girl in a bikini wandering around. There's a swimming pool there. It's that kind of party vibe. It's like Two Live Crew, but a little bit more maybe not quite as
For white
explicit.
people on spring break,
Yeah, basically, yeah.
rich
Basically.
white people.
with girls who you don't know if they're underage or not. It's all a bit,
Right. And like I told you, that singer was in
yeah,
that video and she plays up to that, which
yeah.
is
I, I've, ooh,
almost an
yeah.
Epstein Island type vibe, but
Yeah. You can imagine it maybe being played there
right, yeah, probably.
whilst Ghislaine's
They're
escorting
probably
everybody
on the
around.
recruitment team, so
Yeah. I mean, it was okay from what I heard. I mean, it wasn't. I was
not
expecting
too
it to
big.
be a lot more in your face and aggressive. It didn't seem quite like that. Maybe that was just that song. I don't know. I mean, certainly
Right.
the
They do that. I don't think that song was the one where they have all the gunshots in there.
yeah, cool. Well, fair enough. Yeah. Well,
There you go.
there you go.
Oh yeah, so some stuff to check out if you're feeling adventurous and just want to get outside of what you're presently listening to and try something different that is good, but not necessarily to be taken all that seriously. So
Hmm.
there you go. So click all those buttons that you need to click and like and subscribe and all that, and we will see you next week.